Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I will go ahead and call to order this meeting of the City Council for September 11th, 2020, the special session. If you would all join me, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so this is a special session, so I will start with asking the city clerk to please take the roll.
Sure. I will note for the record that Councilmember Spokley is absent. Councilmember Dowden Calvillo,
I'm present.
Amara,
Yes.
Mackey,
Here.
and Mayor Berlant.
And I am here. First item here is public comment. This is the time provided so that any persons may speak to the council on an item that is on the agenda. Of course, when we posted this special session agenda, the instructions for providing public comment were posted both in email and for telephone comments. I know we do have some public comments, so I will go ahead and start by turning over to the city clerk, and she will walk us through the public comment presentation.
Because I'm going to be doing the public comment and it's going to take a few seconds, I am going to make Jackie a co-host. If you could keep an eye on the attendees and let anybody in the room, if anybody's waiting in there. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so public comment received for today's meeting. Because I have the opportunity of speaking on behalf of myself, because I'm in this meeting, I'll go ahead and say my public comment because I have one as well. Mine is in regards to item number 1, which is the mayor's commendation for Bernie Schroeder. I began working with Bernie in 2009, already 22 years into her career. She was promoted to director shortly thereafter, and I had the privilege of getting to work closely with her. I have so many great memories of working with Bernie. The accomplishments, the career guidance, the life lessons, the inside jokes, and the occasional laugh so you don't cry moments. You can't go anywhere in town with Bernie without getting stopped. She knows everybody. That's because not only did she pour her heart into this city, she poured her heart into the entire community. I am so happy for Bernie in her retirement and can't wait to see what her next adventure is. And now I will start the written public comment that we received. I'll show each public comment for about 20, 30 seconds, depending on its length. And then I'll move on to the voicemail public comment that we received as well.
Hi, Amy. This is Steve Galliard, and this is for public comment for Bernie's accommodation that will be Friday, 9/11. Um, I like to say I've worked with Bernie for over 20 years in one way or another. There have been a number of parades. There have been a number of festivals. I've had Bernie look at me, roll her eyes, look at me and just laugh, say no, be mad.
I apologize for that. Hold on just a second.
Hi, Amy. Comment for Bernie will be Friday, 9/11. I like to say I've worked with Bernie for over 20 years in one way or another. There have been a number of parades. There have been a number of festivals. I've had Bernie look at me, roll her eyes, look at me and just laugh, say no, be mad. But most of the time, she's found a way for us to get our festivals or events or whatever done. I think she's really been an asset to the city. I miss her today. I'm just so grateful to know Bernie and have been able to work with her. I just want to wish her well. Congratulations on the accommodation, and Bernie, I hope to see you a lot in the near future. This is Steve Galliard, and this is for your accommodation. Thank you.
Hi, Amy. This is Charles Twilliger, and I'd like to leave a public comment for Bernie's commendation on Friday, 9/11. Just want to say, Bernie, what will we do without you to take care of those undulations? She has always been such a good friend, good support of our community, wonderful representative for our city. I don't know how we will get along without her, and I'm sure she will be most blessed in her continued success. Thank you, Bernie. Love you always. Bye.
Hi, my name is Solvi Sable, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge Bernie Schroeder for her dedication to the city of Auburn. Bernie is a longtime friend of mine, and I know she felt privileged to serve the community that she loved and continues to love. I think the city was very fortunate to have someone who remained passionate about their role as a public servant for 33 years. Without a doubt, Bernie affected a lot of positive change to the city. I certainly appreciate the council for recognizing her years of service. Thanks.
Yes, this is a public comment on Bernie's commendation on Friday, 9/11. I've watched my sister grow up working for the city of Auburn over the last 33 years and have always admired her dedication and hard work. I've had people compliment Bernie on how much she has been a service to them in a time of need, even stating they don't know what the city would do without her. Congratulations, Bernie, on a standout career and best wishes on your retirement. Let the journey begin. I love you, sis. Melinda.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and members of the community, and of course, Bernie. This is Dan Rich, and I appreciate the opportunity to mention a few things about my interaction and experience with Bernie over the years. I've had the privilege to work for Bernie Schroeder for the past 25 years, completing upgrades to the city's aging sewer system. It's hard to believe this, but 25 years ago, the city's wastewater utility was not in a good place. When it rained, the sewers overflowed. The wastewater treatment plant was routinely out of compliance. Bernie has always understood the gravity of Auburn's situation. She completed 4 major plant upgrades. She rehabilitated thousands of feet of sewer pipe and updated most of the city's sewer pump stations. Because of Bernie, Auburn is now the example the regulators use for how utilities should comply and perform. And I'm not exaggerating this. While all this is impressive, I'd like everyone to know that Bernie has always secretly terrified me. prior to any meeting, and there have been many, I would rack my brain on whether I messed something up, and today was my day. I suspect I'm not alone. Bernie has always empowered the people around her to take responsibility and do better. And so if you don't perform, it's on you. Bernie, I loved working with you. I'm really going to miss you, and I wish you the best in your retirement. Thanks again, Dan.
That completes the public comment that I received.
Great, thank you very much, Amy. And that's a good segue into our accommodation for Bernie. And Bernie, welcome. I see that you have joined us. I don't know if you have a camera and are able to let us see your face.
I would love to. I thought I had it.
Technology. But regardless, welcome. Thank you for joining us. There we are. So, a lot has been said already in public comment, a very good summary of the accomplishments and your background. But I'll read you this proclamation. Again, a lot of it's been stated, but this will help memorialize those things that everybody said. So if you will, Bernie, there's a lot of whereases because there is a lot of tenure and a lot of accomplishments. So with that, I'll read this accommodation. Whereas Bernie Schroeder began her career with the City of Auburn on March 2nd, 1987. And whereas over 33 years, her career served in many positions, including engineering aide, engineering technician, civil engineering assistant, civil engineering associate, engineering division manager, public works director, and planning and public works director. And whereas Bernie Schroeder held the city's planning and public works position, where she was responsible for a multitude of duties, including hiring personnel, capital projects, and the oversight of a wide variety of operational functions. And whereas Bernie Schroeder was heavily involved in many city efforts, including coordination of capital projects, public works improvements, planning initiatives, and of course, the city's general plan. And whereas Bernie Schroeder led numerous redevelopment and capital improvement projects, including the Streetscape Project, Central Square redevelopment, School Park Preserve Project, Palm Avenue Sidewalk Project, as well as enhancements and operations at the Auburn Airport and our wastewater treatment plant. And whereas Bernie Schroeder retired from the City of Auburn on March 26, 2020, and now, therefore, I, Daniel Berlant, Mayor of the City of Auburn, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize the career of Bernie Schroeder for her service, dedication, and commitment of the City of Auburn. So Bernie, congratulations. We'll get you a copy in the mail with our a wet signature, but from me, and I know we'll go around the room, but we didn't get a chance to say goodbye. And since a lot has happened in the past 6 months, we don't really get to see anybody face to face, but thank you very much for your service. Thank you very much for joining us today. And it's my honor to provide you this accommodation for your career. So before I allow the council to make any comments, I want to give you the opportunity to comment if you'd like.
I would. Thank you very much. Today, this recognition is sincerely appreciated. I do have a little script. I typically don't need one, but I don't want to forget some of the important things that I've been thinking about in the last 6 months, particularly to thank those who touched my life professionally and personally in such a positive way. To the members of the City Council, both past and present, who have supported my efforts, to my coworkers, to the consultants, the contractors, the developers, the airport users, business owners, and citizens who collectively provided the sometimes challenging, but always rewarding experiences of my career. To my loving family, who spent most of every other Monday night wondering when I was going to drag in, impatiently spending the next hour or so winding me down so we could sleep and get up the next day. Most of all, I'd like to appreciate overwhelmingly those number of devoted employees in the Planning and Public Works Department who have served the mission so dutifully in spite of the challenges, in the constant chatter of other bosses in their world, in their workplace, and in the community and in their families. I'd like a special salute to Auburn Transit, what a great group they are and have been. They deal with some very tough things. The wastewater team, which I appreciate very much some of the comments that Mr. Rich brought forth. Sometimes you kind of forget things, and I never really meant to scare anyone, but sometimes you got to do what you do. The engineering and the planning and the building folks, particularly the senior planner who came on board at a tough time more recently, a little over a year ago. The building official, what a guy, remarkable work. And the city engineer really giving him his best in times that are quite a struggle, to say the least. And the men and women of the public works crew who loyally answered my calls in midnight. Of course, it was inclement weather. It was amazing at times that they answered, but they did. And I thank them very much. So in conclusion, it's such an honor and a privilege to serve Auburn and the community for so many years. Thank you so much for today's recognition.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bernie, for that. Appreciate that. I want to give the City Council an opportunity if anybody as well would like to make a comment. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Sure. Thank you, Daniel. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Berlant, and the City Council for recognizing Bernie's contribution with this commendation. Bernie, I want to thank you finally publicly for the dedication and hard work you gave to the city and this community for 33 years. I want you to know that there's a void since you left. I've heard that from many people, and I feel it myself, where we always had just one person to call for everything. Even though it might have not been your job, we called Bernie. If somebody called me, call Bernie, please, and ask her. Knowing full well you'd get our answers to us. And I appreciated that so much in all the years that I've served on the City Council. Now we have to find out who to call. And poor John, he's the one that's getting all the calls right now. So poor guy, he'll get used to it though. I can only concur with all the public comments, particularly Rich, because I've been through all the wastewater treatment problems with you, Bernie, over the last 25 years. When I came on board in 1994, we were putting sewer into Auburn Ravine on a regular basis, not on purpose, but that's how it was happening. So I was encouraged by you and others to serve on the Regional Water Quality Board for that reason. And I saw what respect they had for you at the state level for the work you've done on our wastewater treatment plant. So thank you. You've always been there for the citizens of Auburn. We are so grateful for you, and I hope we will be friends forever. And thank you for everything you did for this city. Thanks, Bernie.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any other council members? Yeah, Alice, and then we'll come to Sandy.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Bernie, I guess it's been 22 years. I can't believe it. Like Cheryl, a long time. And I'd like to echo all the comments that Cheryl made and others too. Bernie, you're such a treasure, and we're so incredibly fortunate to have had you with the city. And I agree with Cheryl. If there was an issue, we always knew, call Bernie. And I sometimes will find myself trying to call. Just really, truly do appreciate everything you've done for our city, for our community. We know your work is not done. We look forward to seeing what happens with your future. We will always be here for you as friends. We're just, again, very excited for you, for your future. And thank you so much for 33 years of your life to benefit our city. And I do remember those days with the wastewater treatment plant too, Cheryl. Boy, those were some really difficult days. And but Bernie, you stepped up, and you stepped up every single time, and we're all better for it. So we wish you the very best in your retirement. Again, I know we're going to see more things from you. You're not through. And we love you, and thank you again for everything. And congratulations on your retirement. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alice. Sandy.
Oh, hi. Thank you. Bernie, what I have to say about you is I miss your smile, or shall I say smirk. I love that about you. You're a pleasure to work with. And actually, I was very tired listening to all your accomplishments. So I won't go into that, because more importantly, I loved your attitude. I love working with a person like you. You're always laughing, but you know how to get things done. You come across so well with people. I have people that stop me all the time and tell me to say hi to you. So Bernie, I love your demeanor. I love the fact you're receptive to new ideas. I thank you for your 33 years of hard work. You're a local person, and you've always been there for the city of Auburn. And what's even more phenomenal about Bernie is that I got her to believe in goats. So Bernie, I do hope to see you around a lot, and I hope you enjoy the fruits of your hard labor and accomplishments.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sandy. Any other members that are on the on this meeting want to make a public comment or make a comment? Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Hey, Bernie. Look, everyone has really, I think, said, a good amount of really what you were. To me, you really personified what I think a public servant should be in a small town. And, to have the position that you had and to be able, as everyone's pointed out, willing to take calls and to fix things and to make things happen. I mean, that's just so rare in this world today. And, and it was so genuine with you. And I remember when my friend Liz Briggs and I first were trying to put the park concert together for the symphony, and we had no idea what was going on, how we were going to make that work, nothing. And I didn't really know you then, but Liz was like, well, let me talk to my friend Bernie. She'll be able to square this thing around for us. We can get some of that vegetation trimmed. She'd call it a haircut. And it was from that day on, you were such a go-to person for everything that we did. And that extended obviously all the way to the position that I have now, at the Visitors Bureau. So just want to say that you're such a throwback to a time when people could call and talk to their public servants even at a very high level in the city government and get action and get personal touches out of it. So I personally super appreciate, the time I've got to know you and everything that you've done on behalf of not just the projects that I've worked on, but the entire city of Auburn. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anybody else. Bernie, thank you again for joining us today. I know our goodbyes were not probably what you thought they would be, but I'm happy that we were able to have you join us today, even if it's not in person where we can see the smile or the smirk. But appreciate that we're able to recognize your career and your service to the city of Auburn. So we will make sure to get you this commendation. And I know it's not the last time we'll all see you, since we will see you around town, and I'll likely run into you at a grocery store or getting frozen yogurt like we always do. So Bernie, thank you very much for joining us today.
Appreciate it.
So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to item number 2, our Auburn Economic Recovery Workshop. And the first item here is the Health and Emergency Response Update. So just a quick update for everybody. A lot of changes in our area. I was just on the phone when we started here with our County Board of Supervisors chair, getting even more of the latest, because there are some interesting twists and turns to some of the state guidance. First, just some of the numbers. There have been, since the pandemic started, 3,276 cases in Placer County. 2,927 of those have likely recovered. So that is, only meaning that there is likely less than about 300 or so active cases. Here in, countywide, there were 27 new cases yesterday. Doesn't necessarily mean they were tested yesterday. It just means the results came in yesterday, 27. In Auburn, since the last week, in Auburn being just our zip code 95603, since last week, there have been 4 new cases. Countywide, 38 deaths, a couple more this week, both of which were from congregate living facilities with other underlying conditions. I've had several people who comment back that they don't like that minimizes COVID-19, but I'll just state very clearly that those are specific factors that the health officer includes when we talk about death. So you can take it with what you want, but those are the facts. As far as hospitalizations, though, that's not does not necessarily affect any longer our placement on the new tiered system, but for the overall health of our county, there are 31 people with COVID-19 in Placer County hospitals. 9 of those 31 are Placer County residents. Again, people seem to not like when we point that out either, but I think it's important that we know our own residents that we work for, how many of them are actually in the hospital. So out of 31, it's 9. In the ICU today, there are 10, 2 of which are Placer County residents. So here is the update I got. That's where it starts to get interesting. The state has announced that they are adding a new calculation, I'll say, to how they determine the case rate. So the positivity case rate per day is based on 100,000 residents. Right now in Placer County, we're at a 5.6% new positive cases per day per 100,000. However, the state is now taking into consideration testing, and the availability of testing affects that. And the case rate is then adjusted based on how many people are being tested. So even though our positive case rate is 5.6%, which puts us in the red tier, our adjusted case rate is 6.1%. So it actually moves us up a tiny bit, still solidly in the red. And it was noted that even though we've had a little bit of an uptick today in new cases compared to the last couple of days, this adjustment to the case rate is a factor, right? That's a 0.5 percentage point right there. So depending on how many tests are being given, gives a county an advantage in this adjusted case rate. And if there's not enough testing happening, the adjustment gives a disadvantage. So in Placer County, the number of tests that we are giving averages about 168 for every 1,000 residents. The state's average is 218 for every 1,000. So we would have to increase significantly the number of tests that we're giving to get us to the positivity per 1,000 to meet the state's more or less goal. And of course, the factors of how many people get tested are a little challenged. One is the state determines how much funding we get for testing sites. So the state funds 2 testing locations, one on the east side and one on the west side. There are, again, about 168 spots every day available in Placer County. It would take, I don't have the exact figure, but it's a significant amount of money that the county would have to pay to make up the difference to try to now meet this new requirement from the state. And of course, it's not just doing additional testing that is a factor, it's that the state and the county health officer have told residents that only go get tested if you have symptoms or you're at high risk. So if you don't meet those 2 categories, it's very difficult to get more people tested that aren't sick. And so we're almost penalized if you don't have people who have symptoms. So I asked the question, what do we do? This is kind of a new twist to the requirements. And the county is still kind of determining what its course of action will be. And this adjusted case rate is why counties like the city or the county of San Francisco, why they ended up being on the red tier sooner than Placer County and others. It's because of that adjusted case rate that was taken into account and allowed them to move down a tier faster. So in chatting here with our Board of Supervisor chair just recently, her comment to me was, we are pretty secure right now in the red tier, but in order to move down, it's going to be harder. The bar is now lifted beyond what it was changed to when the new 4-tiered system came out. So again, we're pretty firmly in the red, but we're going to have to increase testing in order to increase testing or, let's be clear, or stop the spread of the disease, which then reduces our case rate. But again, we're going to have this adjusted factor as a struggle. A couple other quick things, but I'll pause there to see if I can answer any questions, but I probably don't have any better answers than that, as it's pretty confusing. But I see Alice, your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, Daniel, did Bonnie happen to mention when this new criteria went into effect?
It was backdated.
It was
That's the
backdated.
reason why the county of San Francisco was able to be in the red tier when they rolled it out, and why Placer County was not yet in that threshold for another, what was it, almost a week and a half or so.
But so when were we made aware of this new criteria regarding the case rate? If it was backdated, but does the Placer County know when, and when were they told? Do you know?
Well, I found out today, and it sounded like the county also only found out this clarification here at the latter part of the week.
Okay, thank you very much. One point is that certainly with schools starting to go back into session, there are requirements that staff be tested on a regular basis, regardless of symptoms. So hopefully that will, keep our testing up, because again, there's that requirement regardless of symptoms. So there's quite a few teachers and staff within the county. So I'm really hoping that will benefit us from the testing perspective. Thanks, Daniel.
And I do have an update here shortly on where they are with the schools. So, any other questions about the new adjusted case rate or our current health size? I'll start with Sandy, and then we'll come to Rob. Go ahead, Sandy.
Is that me? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so you said we can't, people can't get tested unless they have symptoms. What if they've been exposed? They've been in parties or on planes, or been subject themselves to a possibility of being exposed to COVID. Can't they be tested?
Yeah, let me just clarify. At a doctor's office, anybody can be tested, through their own health provider for whatever requirements a health provider provides. Obviously, an exposure is one of those. It's the public-run testing sites, the two OptumServe sites in Roseville and on the east side, where the recommendation is that you, again, either are high risk or you have symptoms. But in reality, anybody can make an appointment, and those requirements of the county for those public locations, my understanding, are just requirements, but that OptumServe is really a first come, first serve if you make an appointment. So really, if you're exposed, you still should be able to go through your medical provider. If not, for any reason, you still likely can get tested at one of the public locations. And again, just to be clear, this does not factor into your own personal healthcare providers, which, if you're going to have a surgery, you would be tested. If you go into the hospital, you're going to be tested, et cetera.
Okay, so it sounds like there can be an opportunity for us to test more people.
Well, it's the capacity that's the issue, at least at the public facilities. The public locations, those two OptumServe locations, are working at capacity.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, I was going to answer one of my questions about where we at capacity. So if we are, the second question I have on that is, when you go in there to make a test through the public portal, you don't have to test in Placer. So you can go up to Grass Valley, which is what I did, and you can get them in one day. Do those count for us? Do those count on our numbers? Because honestly, they ought to, if we're going to count people coming in to use our hospitals. If a Placer person goes to Grass Valley, that should count as a test, right?
Yeah, my understanding is that it's based on where you live, not where you get tested. So yes.
Oh, okay. So that's good news, because then they seem to have a lot of capacity up there, and it's not too and turnaround's very fast too, within a couple days.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the other thing, originally when this debate came up about San Francisco, they had a lower number than their raw number. And it was my understanding at that time that you got either number was going to work, the lower of the two. Is that not the case? Now they're only taking the adjusted number?
I would have to follow up. My understanding is it's the adjusted number, but is a good question.
Because that obviously, you know, has I mean, that's a 0.5% in our case, you know. And if they're not willing to put another testing facility in county, you know, you almost have to allow for that you didn't set it up enough, it seems to me, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think you answered my other question. We still are at the symptom only, right? Because that discourages people from testing. So there was a period of time when for this reason, I was really pushing for people just to go get tests. Get tests, right? It's going to help this number. Now we seem to be back to that, where people without symptoms probably got to say, well, my kid was at school today, so I feel like I was at risk. So, you know, I mean, again, I guess I'm just, you know, voicing the same frustration as everybody else, you know.
Yep. No.
But if you can find out if it's the lower of the two numbers, I think that would be worth knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's no other question on this point, I will just keep going with the update. So on schools, as you're aware, and I think we've talked about plenty here, schools have been allowed to reopen, but there are a number of requirements. As Alice mentioned, the testing is really where it centers around, because the schools are required to be able to test their teachers should there be an exposure. The county, as well as the Placer County Office of Education, have entered into an agreement with a private contractor, and they will have 3 locations for the schools to send their staff should there be a issue. So a number of the schools now have their plans in place. Placer High School, for one, that district is opening up on Monday. So they are very fast at that. I know a couple others are following that in the next week. And again, that's a hybrid version, but of course the issue has been just being able to have that testing. So I think it's very similar to what we've done here in the city, which is if we have an employee that's exposed or has symptoms from work, we can send them to our own contracted facility, and that has a much faster turnaround. In fact, just like us, PCOE, the County Office of Education, is actually able to do some of the testing on behalf of the schools and then send it into their contracted laboratory. So again, all of that helps with the turnaround time, so that if they are negative, they can again get those cohorts or those teachers back to school. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Do those tests then count in our favor? Because that would imply that we have some increased capacity, would be nice.
Yes, again, to be clear on the capacity of the 168, that is again the public funded testing locations. When you go to your doctor or a hospital in Placer County, or now one of these private contractors, all that does count in our favor.
Well, theoretically, then maybe we ought to just be sending students down there to get tested, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue is that it comes with a cost. I don't know off the top of our head what our cost is to do it by employee. If I'm not mistaken, and I don't want to be quoted on this, but I think that in order for the county to do an additional publicly funded, they call it a lane, but you know, an increased capacity, it's something like $400,000 a month to cover it. So back to it being publicly funded, that's a lot of money to do it, just to meet some adjusted criteria. So anyways, Alice, go ahead.
Yes, and Daniel, just to be clear, those testing facilities, those 3 new sites, they're strictly for staff and for teachers. They're not for students. So, and it is part of that testing requirement that the governor is required, that they have their rotating testing. So the Placer County of Education has been able to partner with HHS to develop these sites and to really, this is one of the deciding factors as to whether or not schools were going to be able to open in person, because they weren't able to at the beginning to get over this hurdle, this testing requirement, and to get the results back fast enough. Now they'll be able to get their results back within 48 to 72 hours, which is much better than 6 to 8 days or 12 days or whatever it's taking. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, and there was a lot of publicity specifically out of Rockland about the school and the county kind of pointing fingers at each other about when they can open. And the bottom line is schools have been able to open now for just over a week or maybe almost 2 weeks, but it's back to securing the testing requirement.
Yes.
That's been kind of the challenge. Any other questions from anybody else on the school piece? So the last piece I'll just hit on, I mentioned this and we talked about it at our last meeting, what we were anticipating. But of course, you know, on Tuesday, we did move into the red tier. And just to be crystal clear, effective Tuesday at noon, a number of business sectors were able to reopen, specifically indoors. That included body waxing studios. I'm not sure that's up my list, but anyways, estheticians, gyms and fitness centers could open up at 10%. Movie theaters could open up at 25%. Museums at 25%. Nail salons, piercing shops, places of worship at 25%. Restaurants for dine-in at 25%. Skincare and cosmetology, tattoo parlors, and then yoga studios at 10%. And there may be a few other ones I didn't mention, but that was some really big news and very important news, especially with all the unhealthy smoke that we're getting. So to be able to go inside, I will just say too, getting my coffee early yesterday morning, I talked to the owner of Depot Bay and asked her, I said, hey, now that you've had a couple days of indoor dining, even though they only have 5 or 6 tables, have you seen a difference? And her answer was yes, that they've seen a lot of regulars return who they really hadn't seen, even though they could come in for, you know, it's just a coffee shop, but you know, many people do like to have a seat, read the newspaper or whatnot. So hopefully there's some positivity there. But with that, that is all I have on kind of the update on the health and emergency response from the county. So with that, I'll see if there's any final questions for me. Okay, great. Not seeing any. We'll go ahead and move to our next item, which is city actions and services. And while you're probably tired of me talking, before I give it to John, there's a couple things I just wanted to get out in the open, because there's been a lot of discussion about what is the city doing on behalf of our businesses. And I think there's been some confusion related to some of the actions we've taken. So John, if you could indulge me and the council could indulge me, I just want to go over a few things just to be crystal clear. From my perspective, at least, we are absolutely not going to be going around citing businesses who are not following state restrictions, and that city staff has been directed, and again, making it crystal clear again today, that we're going to continue to focus on providing education on the state's requirements and continuing to support our businesses with protective equipment and waiving many of the city ordinances that we have done, specifically eating in the city's right of way, i.e. on the, I should say, serving food on the city's right of way in the sidewalks. And so the action that was taken several weeks ago that many are have on Facebook, you know, talked about that we're going to be the mask police is absolutely not the case. That the action gives the city the ability, if a business's actions put the general public at risk, it allows us to use our normal code enforcement process, which is an administrative process, versus the only other real tool, which was a criminal process. And I think you would all agree with me that with the early release of many of our jails and prisons and the early release orders that are in effect, criminalizing our businesses for not following these requirements is not acceptable. And so by using the code enforcement process in cases that are so egregious that it puts the general public at risk, it allows us to follow a more formal process that not only is education-based, not only provides a warning in writing process, but it also allows for a public process for somebody to come back and I'm lost on my word here. if they disagree with the action, they can actually bring it forward to the city council as we do with other code enforcement matters.
Appeal.
And so, thank you, an appeal process. And the council, if it comes to our level, can make a discussion and a decision with public input into that process. So again, I just want to stress, we're not criminalizing our business owners. In fact, as I mentioned, we are waiving permits for outdoor dining. We're opening our city parks for business, passing out protective equipment. Many of us are breaking our backs helping to set up outdoor dining in public spaces. We've been sending letters to the state, all of which I will note have not received any response from the state, but we have continued to advocate at the state level and at the county level for reopenings and for those openings to have occurred immediately. Now we are several weeks since sending those letters. Again, we have received the indoor operations, but weeks after we had requested it. And of course, meeting almost on a weekly basis with our business associations, our Chamber of Commerce. And I think the dialogue here has been incredibly productive and helpful. And of course, all of us are talking to businesses one-on-one, not just those that are members of these associations. And I just wanted to make sure to clarify that and get that out on the record, because in my opinion, we are working hard and laser focused at supporting our businesses and keeping our residents safe in the interim. And so that was some unneeded and unfortunate confusion. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it to our city manager to expand on any other items that are occurring within the city related to COVID. So John?
Yeah, no, thank you. Just a couple of items. Mayor hit it right on the head as far as our overall actions. Mostly just information that we're getting out to everybody. We've been trying to get the Placer Shares information out to everybody. Thank you to Jackie and everyone on dropping some information off. I will share with you that we're kind of working to get information from the county as far as who has applied, who hasn't, and seeing how we can get information out that way. Plan on us next week, going to try and get a meeting, and I'll let April expand upon what the Downtown Association is doing, but there's some ideas and some movement on some things that we're going to do to kind of help facilitate and spark some business. Next week, I'm also meeting with folks from the Old Town Business Association to talk about what they're doing. The distribution of PPE. The one thing that I know is that I don't think that there are many cities or counties doing it really as well as we are. As I've talked with other cities, distribution to our businesses, now distribution to the residences is of the PPE very effective. And we kind of joke a little bit about how much we've gotten, but getting that out the door to folks, I think is going to be the priority. Just to we have it and it needs to get out. But bottom line on where the city's at on a couple of things, plan on just more education going out, more information about how we stay in the red zone and actually get and improve upon that. And what the mayor talked about as far as the adjusting of various things, I hadn't heard about that until right now, and I guess it's something that we have to consider as far as at least getting some publicity to try and get more testing. And next week we'll contact the county to find out what their strategy is, because I know that we are pretty close to meeting the criteria to get in to the next level, and that's what we want to do. So overall, just monitoring, education, lots of meetings, and trying to position everything. So that's my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you, John. Any questions for John on actions that the city is taking? Okay, not seeing any. There's one item, I'm so sorry, that I think is very relevant that I forgot to hit on, and that was just mentioning there is a lot of confusion related to the action the Board of Supervisors took earlier this week as far as declaring an end to the local COVID-19 health emergency. And so just to clarify for everybody, Placer County, of course, voted to rescind their local order. However, the state's order is still in effect, and that supersedes the local order, which just allowed the county to be more restrictive. And though the county's local order had not been, having the local county order rescinded still leaves the state order in place. And so all of the business restrictions are still restricted by the state. All of the guidances are still in effect based on the state's order. And the general public requirement to wear a face covering outdoors when social distancing isn't, practical distance isn't available is still required. And so just to be crystal clear, even though the county rescinded theirs, all those things are still in effect. And the city still has a local emergency. And that local emergency is just continuing to allow us to ensure that we are streamlining our processes during this disaster. One item I did follow up with clarification from our Board of Supervisor representative after the action, because we were on the phone during the breaks of their meeting to allow Auburn to have input into that decision. And I know for her, that was a difficult one. At the end of the day, based on their understanding and their guidance, the action does not affect their CARES funding. And so the money available through the Placer Shares program, future CARES dollars should not be affected because they don't have a local emergency, because again, there is still a state emergency in place. And the Board of Supervisors discussed that if something happens where that changes and there is a requirement, they will put a local emergency back in place to ensure that federal funding that's meant for us at this level comes to us. So I just wanted to provide that clarification because I know I'm receiving a lot of emails and I know the rest of the council is as well. So just want to throw that out there. Go ahead, Alice.
Yes, just to elaborate on that point, I also spoke with our supervisor, and what she said was they've received a substantial portion of their CARES money, and so they've already received that money that they're going to be distributing for the grant program. So that's already in-house. And what she also mentioned to me was that if there was any reduction in CARES money, future reduction, that's something that the county would have to absorb. It won't impact the shares program. So she was very adamant about that piece of it, and the fact that they already have received those monies that'll be utilized for that program. So they aren't at jeopardy. So just to elaborate.
Great, thank you. Just, it does seem, anything that happens at any level of government right now is confusing. And this is such a complicated system. And there's a lot of anger and emotion, rightfully so. I mean, rightfully so. So thank you for that clarification too, Alice. Let's go ahead and move on to the Highway 50 closure impact. Highway 50 is expected to be closed September 18th through September 18th through October 2nd. Alice, you had asked for this to be on the agenda. I don't know if you have any additional details that you want to fill us all in, but go ahead.
Yeah, so actually I learned about this through our city clerk. So thank you very much, Amy, for bringing this to our attention. But yes, the Caltrans is working on the Echo Summit Side Hill Viaduct replacement up there at Echo Summit. And it's going to result in first a one-way only, and then it'll go into a complete closure September 18th through October 2nd. There are several different detour routes that will be recommended, 88, 89, 49, and 16. But clearly I-80 will be an alternate route for folks that are going up the hill. And so it just seems like this might be an opportunity for us to capitalize on that additional traffic that's coming through and hopefully stopping. And I didn't know, we have the control of the billboard. If maybe we could do something, I don't know what's coming up there, but welcome, please come here, especially during that time. Or if there are some programs that businesses might want to institute or what have you. But I think there is an opportunity to bring in some additional traffic, because there will be additional traffic on 80. And so I thought this would be a good forum to discuss this and see what other ideas people had. But I did think the billboard would be great since people see that. We could even maybe put in like one of our emergency signs or something, or, the trailers or something, just to encourage folks to stop. So, but there's an opportunity and I didn't want it to be missed for sure.
Great, thank you. Anybody have any thoughts or comments on the item?
I will say, if you're talking about the Maple Street billboard, that's, from what I understand, it's totally booked through the end of the year. That mostly gets booked a year in advance, so.
Okay.
But if I see an opening, I will let you know, and maybe we can do something with the business associations to put something together, but I will check with Jane on Monday.
Jackie, would you mind following up? I know we just updated, I think just before your tenure, but being on the board, you may be aware of this, our agreement with the chamber as far as the use of it. And I'm just curious if the city does, I'm not saying we'll do this, but if the city has any ability to supersede the message, and maybe there's an opportunity to just see what that message is supposed to be. And if it's something that's not critical, we can have that discussion.
Yes, I think from what I remember on the board, we were in the middle of an MOU. I don't know that it got finished.
Gotcha.
Okay. So nothing's been completed as far as that's concerned, but I can definitely look at if there's a billboard going up that's maybe not as time sensitive.
Yeah, we do a lot of, I should say, the chamber does a lot of, public awareness type of, educational items that are very important, but maybe there's some opportunity for us to say this is more critical during this time period. But if you don't mind following up on that. Any other comments or thoughts? Yeah, Rob, go ahead.
Alice, that's a great point to bring up in terms of folks using this. And it's something I'll talk to our marketing team about in terms of, if we're going to be doing any kind of drive market, social, that kind of stuff, certainly figuring a way to meet some of the people. I don't know if getting some, Facebook ads around things that are happening in South Tahoe, something like that might be worth exploring. So I'll look into that. I definitely think though that there, agree with you that there's some opportunity there potentially. So I'll look into that on our side.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I don't want to lose that opportunity. If we can get more people shopping and dining, then the better. So.
Any other thoughts or comments by anybody else? Alice, any final words on this?
Just looking forward to hearing back from Jackie on that. And, like I said, whatever we can do, if there's additional Facebook discussions or what have you, just to get the word out that we're open and we're encourage folks to stop on their way.
I just looked at the calendar and it takes about 10 days to get the billboard art up. So there's that too.
Yeah. Today is the 11th. Yeah.
Okay.
You'd still have most of it, right? Potentially, but does the city, maybe this is a John question, does the city still actively spend money in social channels right now? Or have you guys paused that? Or, because I know there's been some of that in the past.
Yeah, we still have the contract with Mora, who is pushing all the Explore Auburn things, but predominantly what we are sending out right now is just through the city staff. So Mora, yes, other stuff, no.
Any other questions or items on this? Okay, Jackie, we'll look forward to hearing. And again, not trying to take away the billboard from anybody by any means, but just at least having the discussion and being aware of what's going on. So thank you for that. Okay, the next item is the Placer Shares program, as well as the Eats and Drinks grant as well. And Jackie, do you want to maybe take this one?
Yes. The Placer Shares program was quite interesting, actually. I did spend a good chunk of last week going around and talking to businesses to make sure that they knew about it. And surprisingly, there was a fair amount of people with skepticism. A lot of businesses I heard from said nothing comes for free. And even though I assured them that this was free money to them, some of them didn't want to apply. I also got a lot of people asking if it would hurt their PPP reimbursement, which it doesn't. So, and then there's a lot of people that didn't even hear about it, even though the county really worked hard to, both on social media, through the chambers, through the visitors, to get the word out, and mailers. I think they sent 2 mailers to every business in the county. But there was a fair share of people that had no idea what was going on. So I did get quite a few people to say that they would apply. I don't know what the final numbers were. I would love to see that coming from the county, because I know in the middle of it, they were not even close to the number that they thought they would be at. So I'm waiting to hear back on that. And then the eats and drinks still goes through till the end of the month for all restaurants and bars to get their fee waivers from the county, to get their fees waived from the county, whether that's been already paid for this year or it's still due. So that still goes through to the end of September.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions related to either of those 2 grant programs?
Daniel, I will say, I kind of did the same thing that Jackie did, and I was really surprised how many businesses literally had no idea about the program. And then there, so which makes me rethink about those of us that are online and have a lot of channels, we have to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of people just still don't do that stuff. And, and again, ran into the same thing that Jackie talked about in terms of people being like, well, I've already got this and I don't need, more debt, and you're basically saying, look, this is free money. This is a grant. And, I made sure to find out from the county how long it was to fill it out. So I think it's going to be important that, even though it's only $1,000 or $1,200, that we're really vigilant about getting that info out to the restaurants for the next step.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. I will say too, last week when I chatted with Sherry Conway, the economic director for the county, who's been heading this up, at that point in time, they had received, as Jackie said, less than what they had expected. However, at that point, it hadn't yet closed. And so they weren't sure if there was going to be a big rush at the end. But she did say that there was no promises, but based on whatever number it comes in at the end, that if they didn't get a large enough net, that there could be the potential that they would extend the filing date. So I haven't heard any of that, and I would think Jackie would hear that for me, but that is a possibility that's out there. So, okay, with that, if there's no other questions on the grant program, let's go ahead and move to where we are with our business personal protective equipment and the issuing of face masks and hand sanitizer. So Jackie or Amy, I'll let you take it. Or Amy's not there. Jackie?
Amy did leave me. We are getting it out every week. We have at least 1 or 2 days full of pickup. Our plan was to go around with a car and the 2 of us and visit all the businesses around town. But luckily, or not unluckily, it has been extremely smoky and neither one of us really wants to spend extended periods of time outside. So as soon as it clears up a little bit, our plan is to continue to get out to the businesses and get them their protective gear. Like I was telling John earlier, is Tin Lantern up in Meadow Vista just hasn't been able to get down here. And so luckily I just bought a house in Meadow Vista, so I can go have dinner at Tin Lantern and bring them some masks and hand sanitizer. But our goal is to make sure that every business in town has what they need to stay covered and stay healthy and help lessen the growth of COVID.
Great, thank you. Amy, welcome back. We're talking about the PPE. I don't know if you have anything to add on the distribution efforts.
Probably not. I'm sure Jackie covered it. We've been working weekly on it and reaching out to as many people as we can. Great,
thank you. Any questions anybody has on PPE? Okay, Jackie and Amy, thank you guys for your continued efforts on getting that issued out so we can help keep people safe. So Let's move on to our reports. So I'll start with the Auburn Chamber of Commerce report. Anything else to add?
We
You've covered
have
a
been
lot. But...
working with the Old Town. I know. Just the Old Town business and downtown business. We've been working on holidays in Auburn and trying to make that the best we can given our situation. We've been doing the PPE, the shares, and just really going around to the different businesses in Auburn and asking where we can help and what they need. PPE has really been the biggest thing that people have asked for, and opening up, which is not something that we can help with. We have to explain to them that that's the state and not the city nor the county. But other than that, I think people are really excited about a little bit of reopening. I wandered around this week and saw a lot of people inside of restaurants, which has been nice because of the smoke. I was over at Local Heroes for lunch and there was quite a bit of people inside, only at 25%, but it was nice to see people inside again. So it's great for the restaurants. It's great for, I know a couple of the retail businesses in Old Town have been enjoying having more of the restaurant scenes open, but that's kind of where we're at this point.
Great, thank you very much, Jackie, appreciate that. We'll move on, or any questions for the chamber? Okay, great. Move on to business association reports. In April, why don't we start with you for downtown?
Hello. It's kind of more the same. We are continuing to work on the proposal for the one way on Lincoln Way because we think that will accommodate the businesses, the restaurants who are dining outside. And I'm anticipating it's going to be a while before that kind of space isn't needed. So our target now is to have a general membership meeting on September 30th. And so we do want to we have materials being created in the meantime that we can get distributed in advance, including to the neighbors in the area. The next meeting on the Olive Auburn holiday festivities is the 16th. That's next Wednesday, a Zoom meeting at 5:30. And I don't think I've included Rob on that up till now, and I'm going to do that because one thing that we want to be sure about is that marketing would be really comprehensive and extensive. And so I think I mentioned last time that Home for the Holidays is the theme that we kind of decided on, and it's the desire to really keep people out and around and have it be very festive, even if it's different. And part of the marketing issue that we talked about last time that we really want to pursue in the DBA is mentoring of businesses who aren't online, who don't have a social presence. And nothing has really come up since then. So I intend to initiate further discussion on that because we talked about the possibility of the chamber doing a webinar, and then we followed that up with the fact that the people who aren't online aren't going to be able to benefit from a webinar. And we really do see a lot, the communication issues that you mentioned about the shares program. I mean, just communication is extremely difficult. And so we are preparing a large postcard mailer for our general membership because email, I don't know if it's just ignored. It's just very difficult. And I wonder if there aren't just a certain number of businesses who would get the Auburn Journal in their business and look at it and find things out, get information there. And that's just, kind of ineffective in the present format. So that's a real need. The holiday push, I think, is really kind of the one that is starting to be more urgent in my mind as every day of September rolls along. So I'm going to invite a lot of people for the Zoom meeting, as many as I can think of, all the council members, everybody on this on this meeting will get an email for the Zoom meeting on the 16th at 5:30, because I think we really need to push that and get that going and have all the businesses have buy-in as soon as possible so we can really do this. And it will be a new tradition that we build and that can continue on even into the post-COVID years.
Great, thank you, April. Any questions for April? Yeah, go ahead. We'll start with Alice and then come to Rob.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, it just struck me with regards to the outdoor dining. I did have one of the restaurants ask me about, now that they can go back indoors, if we were going to pick up the outdoor dining. And so what I had indicated was, no, we're going to keep it there because, you know, first it expands their opportunity, but also you just never know. We don't want to have to replace it again, you know, and so forth. So they understood. But I think it's important for folks that, you know, the public really to understand that we can promote as much outdoor dining as we want and provide as many resources and do as much work. But some restaurants will just choose not to move outdoors. And that really is their choice. We can't force them to come outdoors. We can make it as easy and as pleasant and as safe as possible. But we just do need to respect, at the end of the day, it's the business's decision, really, if they're gonna go outdoors. So in any event, like I said, I did indicate to that business owner that we'll just keep it there, and you know, maybe they would like to use it in the future. I know that's hot and smoky right now, so that's difficult, but I don't know if others are getting those questions, but I did. I also had one of the a business owner asking me about you know, just, or actually really raising, what are they going to do when the weather starts to turn difficult and they can only have, you know, 25% capacity, and that, you know, outside is very difficult. And so we haven't really talked about that, but, you know, with the state restraining, and who knows when we're going to move into the next tier, places that are, you know, takeout or small places. I think about the baker and the cake maker is a perfect example, where they're having people wait outside when they're waiting for their order because they can only have so many people inside. So that's something we might want to kind of start thinking about, if there's anything that we can do to help facilitate outside during difficult weather. So just another thing to put in our caps and really start, you know, I don't have the answer, but there may be some opportunity. I don't know, you know, covers or what have you, but that is certainly an issue that's going to be facing our businesses as we go into the colder and the stormier weather. So thanks.
And I'll just say that I've been thinking about it because I know that our street down in Sacramento's already put up a great, big, huge circus tent that's used communally by a lot of restaurants. And, you know, we just have to kind of see how it rolls, and it may be our option, you know, but I think there's choices, and there's heaters, and there's, who knows?
Yeah. And it's just sort of, you know, trying to, you know, help our businesses again, you know, some that are close to each other, you know, a tent makes a lot of sense. And downtown, there are several situations where you've got businesses right next to, or, you know, restaurants right next to each other, where that would be an easy fix. But it's the ones that are really remote, you know, like I said, the baker and the cake maker is a perfect example. They're just a little tiny place there, you know, so something for us to continue to think about. And as we, you know, I don't think that we're going to need to really provide any more plants and the barriers and so forth. I think we've pretty much brought everyone outside that wants to come outside. So like the next phase really is, what do we do in this inclement weather, and to help our businesses to continue to be able to serve our patrons. So.
Right. Thank you. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, on that note, Alice, you know, there is a coalition of folks that was sort of spearheaded by the mountain communities that's really working down at Sacramento to try to really address this, because it's going to kill Tahoe, obviously. So, you know, I do think it's worth really being thoughtful about. Secondly, I think it is good to keep open the restaurants, because there still shows a very significant amount of populace across the country that is not, you know, they're not comfortable. So having I think having the dual option is really a win. The one thing I wanted to ask April is, we're starting to get questions about Halloween, and I don't know if you guys have thought much about that, and what with the old, you know, obviously other people have, but we don't really know what to say about it right now, you know, in terms of how, you know, Old Town and downtown have always kind of had a, you know, had a thing. And I don't know if you guys have had any discussions on it.
Well, we did kind of have a joint email, and 2030 Club wants to be involved, and the fairgrounds is doing a drive-in movie that has a youth-oriented movie at the beginning, and they're going to have like Trunk or Treat, and then there's I think Rocky Horror later after that. I'm not sure how they put it before that. I don't know, but I mean, there is that option that's being created at the fairgrounds for something, and and we brought it up and we will bring it up at our group meeting, but that only gives us a month. But it's a real tough one. And I don't, I was trying to think like some kind of, I don't know, just a local version of the trunk or treat where they reach hands in. I mean, everything is very tactile, when you're talking about trick or treat. So it's a tough one, but there is that fairgrounds option.
I actually have been thinking about it a lot because Halloween is my favorite holiday. And how we can go about, I know Menjel talked about when we first started the Christmas discussions about giving up some city property to do kind of like a trunk or treat, something with businesses. I would kind of love to revisit that. I've also thought about if businesses could do, it's hard because it's a Saturday and it's usually a weekday, so it's easier to do the trick-or-treating in downtown and Old Town. But if they had like a bucket and you had a spoon and someone was out there just spooning out candy so nobody was touching anything, these kids, I mean, I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they ask me every day to go to the Halloween store to look for costumes, and I haven't done it because you just never know what's going to happen. But I would love to see something happen for them and somehow bring the businesses in on it, but I don't know how.
Yep.
Great, thank you. Good discussion. Let's go ahead and move to Old Town. So Nina, hello.
Hello, everyone. There's not much to report, only because we had to cancel we were to have a board meeting Tuesday. However, one of our board members was on a possible evacuation and 2 others were on a standby. So we're moving it till this Tuesday. I know we will be discussing Halloween and kind of what that might look like in Old Town. I believe Drew and Deborah have been on the Christmas calls with you, April, because I wasn't available, but after next week, I'll be able to be back on those. There is talk as far as Christmas about doing a lighting ceremony on the old firehouse and kind of doing something around that. So I think that's kind of what we're going to focus on, and maybe do some type of scaled down Country or Classic Christmas, what it was called. Not so much with like all the vendors out on the street, but actually more promoting the businesses, having them, and center that around like the firehouse, lighting of the firehouse in Old Town. And then the outdoor dining, I think that's what's really on our table for discussion on Tuesday, along with Halloween and kind of what that looks like. Again, for our restaurants, they still don't want to shut down the street. And that may still be the case. I'm not really sure what that looks like. And then on the last thing, the Noshing for nonprofits have done really well. I think, Daniel, you came to the first one. Last night we did one for Young Life. It was extremely well attended. The 24th, we have a brisket dinner, so if anybody wants to come. And it's just, I think people, one, are enjoying getting out, and we're able to do a lot of safe distancing. 2, I think people are very supportive of our nonprofits that have been hit so hard. And so that's been really nice to see. So I'm kind of trying to figure out how we can maybe carry that through the winter, again, with the tent idea on one of the decks, and do some things for some of that, and work with Old Town, and I might even do some stuff for the businesses. I have offered the different restaurants, if they want to use the decking up here, if they don't have decking and wanted to do some things, they're more than welcome to do that. And that's kind of it for Old Town. Like I said, our meeting's Tuesday, so I'll have more on our next call 2 weeks from today. So.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Nina in Old Town? Okay. Unfortunately, we had to have Monique had to drop off. She had another conflict, so no report for the 49er Business Association. And so with that, our next meeting will be in 2 weeks from now, unless something major comes up, and that's Friday, September 25th at 2 p.m. And so for today's meeting, I just want to adjourn in honor of Patriot Day and recognize the 2,977 people who died in the September 11th attacks, and the firefighters, the 343 firefighters, the nearly 100 law enforcement officers who responded to those attacks and gave their lives. So With that, everybody, in a somber moment, have a safe weekend, and we'll look forward to talking to you all very soon. Thank you.
Bye.
You
Thank
guys.
you.
Yeah.
Bye.